Hello! This is a quick introduction to how to use the Virtual Programming Lab in Moodle. Regardless of which class you're in, if you have some type of automated labs, you'll find yourself using the Virtual Programming Lab in Moodle. It's already been set up for you. All you have to do is go in, add your code, and then you can run it. In some cases, your labs will be automatically graded, and a grade will be entered into the gradebook without the interference of an instructor or a teaching assistant. In some cases, elements of your lab will need to be manually reviewed, for example, for style or design. So here's a basic lab that we're going to find in any Moodle class. And this is the student's view of the lab. So this is what you will see when you get into any of these virtual programming labs. So the first thing to notice is that you can see the available from and due date. Available from means that that's the time at which you can start entering in your code into the system. You should be able to see the description before and after that time, but you can only actually add code during this period of time between the available from and the due date. This is a hard due date. There are no extensions on labs in Moodle. You can see the maximum number of files, in this case 1. Early labs, we're only going to have 1 file because we only need 1 file. And the type of work, in this case individual work, so you're not allowed to work as a group. We start out with the description. You don't actually have to read the whole thing here. This is just going to show you what the whole description is. You're going to spend most of your time in the Edit tab. So go ahead and pop over to that one. The first thing it's going to do is ask you for a file name. Generally, you're going to name it main.something, where the .something goes with whatever language you are learning. In this case, this is a Python class, so I'm going to type in main.py. Right? It's always best to name it main because it's your starting file. Therefore, anyone else who jumps into your project knows exactly which file is the starting file. You must apply the appropriate extension, in this case .py, indicating Python. Click OK or hit return. And you can see here it has now created main.py, and it gives you an editing window here in the middle. If you want to save it at this point, you can just click the Save button. This is the window in which you're going to be doing most of your work. First things first, just to kind of introduce you to the different pieces here. There is a window here to the right that is going to have the output of your testing. Most of the Moodle programming labs will have some type of automated test cases that you will be running on your code. We'll get to that in a second. But this window over here is going to have that output. It's going to have the whole description. So you can see the description and edit your code at the same time. Other handy things in this window here. We can expand to full screen view using the double arrows. I recommend that just because it's easier and because it's going to give you a lot more working space over here on the left-hand side. Then these other buttons are going to be of some importance here. Most important, we are going to run. Running allows you to manually test your code. So let's go ahead and just put something simple in here. Hello world, good place to start with any Python code. Save it, and then it'll let you run it. This will pop up a console window and show you the output. If we had any form of input, we could type it into the console window and be able to easily then test our code manually. These console windows are a little bit annoying to copy and paste work or test cases into. What you want to do is you want to open up this clipboard and you want to paste in or type in the instructions that you want to then paste into the console. So let's say, for example, I wanted to have the input 1A hello. Then if you want to paste it into the window, hit the paste button. If you want to copy the text from this window and put it somewhere else or copy it over to some other window, just hit copy and it will copy everything from this console. So it's a little weird. You can't just use Control-C and Control-V into these pop-up console windows. The other important thing that you're going to need to know in Moodle's virtual programming labs is the checkbox here, the evaluate. This is going to run the automated test cases. So let's go ahead and do that. Now, in this case, I have not implemented any of the code here in the lab. So I'm going to fail all the test cases, but it's a good place to start to show you what that looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and run that. Shouldn't take long. So here we can see our test cases. It identifies all of the tests that I failed, which in this case are all of them. Then you can look through and see the results from each individual test. So here we're just going to look at the first test here, test number 1, where neither of the inputs are prime. Here's the input that's provided. Here was our program's output. That's what your code output to the console. And then we also have the expected output. This is what the test case is expecting your program to produce. Now, to figure out what you did wrong, this is where I recommend that you use the diff checker. There's a simple online diff checker, just diffchecker.com, that I use to test my own code. And you can take and copy your program output, place that in one of these two windows, copy the expected output, put that in the other window, and then find the difference. And in this case, it's quite obvious what the difference is. It's everything. It will show you literally line by line and word by word what was different between the two inputs and outputs. I'm going to make a couple of random changes, and I am going to run the difference again. So here you can see that it's going to highlight all of the words that are actually different in both sides. So it indicates what lines are different, but then within that line, exactly which words are different. This will let you go through and actually fix what's wrong. Sometimes it can be a spacing error, spelling error, punctuation error, capitalization error. The outputs must be absolutely 100% identical to pass the tests. So once you've figured out what your problems are, then you can go back and you can fix your code. You can then evaluate it again, and you just keep going until you get a grade of 100%. So for labs, you can always evaluate as many times as you want. There is no limitation to the number of times you run these tests. However, for homeworks, you'll see a slightly different piece of information here on this button. So here is a homework assignment, and you can see that the checkbox button has changed, or the evaluate button has changed. It now has 0 of 5 and then a -5. What this means is that you have used 0 of your free 5 evaluations. These first 5 evaluations have absolutely no penalty associated with them, so you can use any or all of them. Once you have exhausted them, then additional evaluations carry a -5% penalty. That's what that second part of the button indicates. As we use those evaluations, we'll see that first number change. So let's go ahead and put in a simple hello world case. You can run it as many times as you want with no penalty, but it also doesn't run the automated test cases. So running it still just gives you the manual results in the console. Now, if we want to evaluate our code, when we hit evaluate, that's going to run the automated tests. It's going to tell me how many tests I failed. In this case, I failed all of them. You can see that it's going to give a proposed grade of 0. So that indicates what your current grade is for this particular homework assignment. When it passes the tests, this is what you'll see. Summary of the tests, 10 tests run, 10 tests passed. So that's when you know that you have completed the homework, you've received your grade, and it says up here, proposed grade 100 of 100. At this point, we are failing all of the tests. Let's imagine we've already used 6 of our 5 evaluations. You can see here, proposed grade -5 of 100. So it's already included that penalty. So let's go ahead and actually fix the code and run the evaluation again. So at this point, even though I passed the tests, because I ran 2 extra evaluations, I lost that extra 10 points. The most important thing is once you have passed the tests and you have that proposed grade, 90 of 100, leave it alone. Don't touch or change anything. Otherwise, you'll have to run an evaluation again, and then you'll lose another 5 points. For those of you who prefer not to actually write your code in this editor, and honestly, for your homework, I highly recommend that you use an external IDE, a professional IDE. For those of you who prefer to somehow upload it, that option is available to you. That's the Submission tab. So if you click on the Submission tab, here you can drag in one file at a time and then submit it. And that will submit those files to the project. You can then look at the Edit tab. Your code will be there. And then you can run the code from here in order to evaluate it and receive your grade. If you want to verify your grade, go over to this grades section here, and then the gradebook will open and you'll be able to see your individual grades for this and all of your other assignments. I guess that's it for the virtual programming labs, and welcome to Moodle.